Thank you for joining us at the Lytham Partners Fall 2023 Investor Conference. My name is Joe Diaz. I'm a managing partner at Lytham Partners. Today we welcome Versus AI, which trades on the OTCBB exchange under the ticker VRSSF. We will be hearing from Gabriel René, founder and chief executive officer of Versus AI. Gabe will provide an overview of the company, its markets, and the opportunities in the coming years. Before we begin, I would like to thank all of you in the audience for devoting some of your time today to hear the Versus story. As a reminder, Mr. René will be available for one-on-one meetings today. If you have not already signed up, please visit the Lytham Partners website at lythampartners.com/virtual and click on the one-on-one meetings request button. With that said, let me introduce Gabriel René, CEO of Versus AI. Gabe, thank you for joining us. We greatly appreciate it. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Joe. Great to be here. Appreciate everyone listening in on this talk and hope to have a chance to meet you later today or in the coming days and weeks. The company's called Versus. We started in 2018 with the idea of building the infrastructure for the next era of the web, which we see as Web 3.0, which will inherently be powered by artificial intelligence. I have a background in cybernetics. I grew up in Silicon Valley, worked in the Valley for about 25, 30 years. Wrote a book with my co-founder when we founded the company called The Spatial Web, How Web 3.0 Will Connect Humans, Machines, and AI to Transform the World. We have background in advanced R&D, so we've worked with these technologies for decades. The book became an international bestseller and has driven tons of attention from Fortune 500s and governments and large consulting firms to us because many people believe that we have the most accurate vision of where technology is leading us. And we built a company to basically position ourselves to be service providers to kind of provide this new infrastructure. So I put together a team of people with backgrounds in artificial intelligence and neuroscience and robotics and enterprise software from some of the best research labs in Silicon Valley, some of the largest tech firms in the world, and some of the top scientists in the field of neuroscience, or what's called computational neuroscience. My chief scientist, this is a cover from 2018, the genius neuroscientist who might hold the key to true AI, Wired magazine, is Professor Carl Friston. I'll tell you a bit more about Professor Carl Friston as we get on, but Professor Carl Friston is the top neuroscientist in the world. He's the most cited neuroscientist in history. This is the man that has unlocked the key to intelligence in biological systems and the mind. He's on a short list for the Nobel Prize for this work. He's the man that invented essentially fMRI functionality and is one of the most amazing human beings you'll get a chance to meet. And he's at the heart of his science. Underlying research is at the heart of the technology that Versus has been building. We also acquired a good number of his team, researchers that had studied with him over the years, world's leading neuroscientists, and across multiple universities. And the vision we have here is really, what does a 21st century civilization look like? In the same way that many early, 17th, 18th, 19th century, 20th century innovators and pioneers looked at technology and said, what kind of changes can we make to the world? Versus has done the same thing. But we believe that building the infrastructure layer is the most valuable and most effective and most useful layer. So you see a kind of futuristic version of the world that's maybe not so far away, where you've got artificial intelligence, autonomous vehicles, holographic data sets, sort of a balance between, the natural and the physical structures of buildings and cities, all sort of intelligently automated. And I want to frame for you essentially what AI is so that you can understand what the opportunity is. What's really happening here is we're transitioning from the information age, where it's about collecting and connecting data, right? This is what we did with the World Wide Web, to the intelligence age, which is now about analyzing and acting on data, and essentially having software that can do that. And if you want to make it simple, just think that AI is smart software. Instead of software that we program and tell it what to do, it's software that figures out what to do by itself. Just like a self-driving car drives itself. Well, a self-driving accounting system will do the accounting by itself. And so smart software is going to replace and upgrade all the software in the world. It's going to make everything and everyone smarter. In the same way that you can Google things today, you'll be able to talk to a personal agent that can give you specific information on your specific example. And all of the software that runs everything from our electrical grids and our financial systems to our coffee pots and our cars is all going to be changed, upgraded with this new kind of smart, intelligent software. Now, the impact of this is actually unprecedented, even in the technology space. We're looking at a $2 trillion AI software market between now and the end of the decade. That's many times larger than the last couple of rounds of technology. So if you feel like you're sad that you missed Web 1.0 or you missed Web 2.0, we'll get in line now, because this is going to be much larger. And the promise here is massive. We're talking about a $25 trillion impact on global GDP. This is not my words, this is McKinsey's analysis. The idea here is that somewhere between 10 and 1,000x breakthroughs can come from the fact that this technology, this software, can do work that humans can't do. So imagine every scientist having the best research assistants that it could have, every engineer, every educator, every child having personalized education, you as a business person or investor having the sort of advisor that can understand all of the machinations of the markets in real time. How would that change your life? Imagine how this could apply to medicine, or this could help us to tackle some of our large planet scale challenges, or even achieve some of our wilder dreams. This is what we mean by a smarter world. It's infusing intelligent software into the fabric of our civilization and positioning us for what we think is a whole new era. So the goal here that everyone's trying to figure out in the AI space is very simple. How do we get machines to understand us, and for us to make sure we understand machines? Right? This is just a simple idea of mutual understanding. And it's a bit weird because we're biological creatures. We've grown over billions of years of evolution, and these are machines, software programs, right? But the goal is to get machines to understand us, understand our human experiences, our interests, our goals, our rules, and our values. Now, this is essential. If we want them to obey our rules or fulfill our goals, they need to understand. And consequently, we need to understand them. What is the logic if they're going to be autonomously driving and operating, making everything from coffee to investments on our behalf? What is the logic? What's the basis behind their analysis, their advice, their forecasts, or the physical actions they're taking in our cities, our homes, our streets, our schools? So understanding is the key. Now, today, all of the AI companies, except for Versus, are following a very specific and very similar path, a very similar approach to building this AI infrastructure, which you might think of as the foundation, right? We believe that these are the wrong foundations for understanding, and here's why. They're artificial. And even when you say the word artificial intelligence, that phrase kind of tends to rub most of us wrong because we don't like it, right? This is a little like casting our seeds onto cement and hoping they'll grow. So it's based on an idea called the scaling thesis. OpenAI, Google, Meta, everyone is trying to just make bigger AI models with more data, more compute power. This is why they've all gone rushing for NVIDIA chips, which is why NVIDIA's prices, spiked to $1 trillion. And they're hoping that if they just scale these things, that it will naturally lead to understanding. Now, when you started with AI, kind of in the modern era, a decade or two ago, they found that if you gave more examples of, say, a picture of a cat, the thing would get it better. 37% right. Well, let's give it 1 million pictures. So now it gets to 68% right. Oh, let's give it 3 million. Okay, now it'll give it 89%, right? The idea that scaling has worked has been great, but will this lead to the kind of nuanced understanding that we need for human interaction? It's very debatable, and here's why. Just because something is big or bigger doesn't mean it's going to naturally lead to understanding. ChatGPT and these others are called large language models, but they don't capture the multidimensionality of human experience. Even you watching me right now, or the environment that you're in, so human experience, human needs, human values need to be able to be captured in a much more dynamic and a much more richer format. They're just doing surface level correlations, right? They might recognize that when the word sun and the word shorts pops up, or short sleeves, that there's a correlation between sun and short sleeves. But they don't know that that underlying mechanism has something to do with heat or people trying to regulate their temperatures. If we really want AI to understand us, it needs to understand the underlying sort of mechanisms and principles, the causes of reality, not just the correlations. Their other failing is they think complexity will lead to more clarity. Well, because these models get bigger and bigger, like 10 years ago, they were, 100 million parameters. That's a total number of connections in the system. Now it's 1.7 trillion. The idea that increased scale is going to lead to interpretability and suddenly make these things more understandable is moving us further away from understanding. And finally, you might not know this, but every AI in the world, when they ship it, is static, meaning it's frozen in time. It doesn't learn anything new. It's the exact opposite of biological intelligence, which is dynamic. And these sort of fixed monolithic models, they lack the ability to adapt or evolve. They only can learn from these big data sort of examples. They cannot learn from experience. They cannot learn in real time. So Versus has taken a completely different approach. This is called natural computing. Natural computing looks at nature and tries to understand how natural processes occur in living systems, right? And then tries to apply that to computing systems. So when you're talking about natural interactions with computers, like natural language or computer vision or augmented reality, where you can see data in 3 dimensions, or computers that can interact with the world, right? So IoT sensors, cameras, autonomous vehicles essentially interacting with the 3-dimensional environment. It's a robot, we're talking about human-like robots as well. And so all of these technologies are rooted in mimicking or reflecting aspects of nature. And we want to use this to basically be the basis for powering a new web that is run on intelligent software. So the approach that we've taken is based on science. Our competitors, the largest companies in the world and the top startups on the planet, have taken an engineering trial and error based approach. It's led to some amazing breakthroughs, but it's started to really break in terms of the limitations and the problems that these things have. The approach that we took is based on the idea of neurodynamics, right? How do we understand the dynamics of the brain? What is nature's blueprint for intelligence? And how can we understand the structure and the adaptability of biological intelligence? I'll give you a very quick example. When humans had the dream that they could fly a couple of centuries ago, you had a lot of people that looked at birds and said, birds flap their wings, and these observations should then apply to how we're going to make a machine to flap its wings and it will fly. Whereas a few of these jumped a bit, and many thought that just adding more layers, just like more layers in these neural nets today, more wings would lead to more flight. They didn't understand the underlying aerodynamics. It was the Wright brothers who built a barn and built a wind tunnel in that barn and studied the dynamics of wind that allowed them to design a system that actually was based on these first principles, the first aerodynamics. And we've done the same thing for intelligence now. And so instead of these sort of fixed, narrow purpose, frozen AIs, you get a biological algorithm that can learn anything, unlike these sort of narrow purpose tools of the current AIs that might learn text or might learn images. This could learn anything, mechanics, motion, that can also learn and adapt like humans. So this is a completely different adaptive approach to intelligence. And we call our product that we're launching this month in research and development for the last 5 years, Genius, smarter by nature. So Genius is a new kind of intelligent software based on biological algorithms. It's designed to generate software agents that can learn and adapt through experience and can better understand humans, our rules, our values, and be able to perceive and act in a world that is constantly changing and builds complexity. So Genius, like software programs of yesteryear, you could think of something like Salesforce, which is software as a service that helps with sales tools, right? This is intelligence as a service. This is the kind of software that you will use to power smart accounting systems, to power smart search systems, to power smart e-commerce systems, but also to power smart coffee pots and refrigerators and cars and drones and robots. So Genius is based on the idea of infusing the genius of nature into software. Its main features are that you can take any data set and it will standardize that data set and make it usable by an intelligent software agent. So as a user, you don't have to do any of the work to prepare that data. There's a whole industry of data scientists doing this today for large companies. Genius acts as a pipeline and does this automatically. It allows you to customize agents for anything, like the use case examples I just gave. It can understand multi-dimensional data like we can, right? Sound, space, 3 dimensions, more. So it builds these world models, not just sort of word models of these language models. And it's based on these biological algorithms. The benefit is you get an adaptive, explainable, and collaborative software agents. They can work with other agents, right? So my software agent can call the barber's software agent, and they can automatically book a schedule for me. Same with my doctor. Same with Uber. Right, all this can happen completely autonomously. They can do analysis and predictions. So you can imagine any data set. Here's every email I've ever written. Please crawl it and extract insights. Let me know what was the tone I used every time I talked to Joe, or maybe just what was my tone in the last month, right? Nuanced, detailed things that you might pay somebody to do if you could afford the time, or some intern to make sense of this. But now you have a highly specialized agent that's going to get smarter. Understand your sales information, how many customers at such and such location at such and such time of day, at very advanced sort of stuff. Predictions as well, recommendations. So you could set a series of goals, and this is the point of smart software. It's outcome based. Today, computers are things we put inputs into and we get outputs. But what we really want to say, here's the outcome I want, you figure it out. This is what an autonomous car should do, right? It says, hey, I want to get to this destination. You figure out the right path, right? And so this enables everything from smart software and all applications to appliances, digital assistants to robotic automation. And Versus is the only one with this broad spectrum of potential applications, because everyone else is basically building narrow purpose tools because they're building it using the artificial approach. So our approach is we started by enabling a model, what's called a world modeling language that is multidimensional. This is all mathematical, and so it's called biosemiotics. But the idea here is a standards-based approach to multidimensional knowledge modeling. What does that do? It lets AIs understand the world the way humans do. We actually donated this to the IEEE a few years ago, who's the largest standards body in the world. Standardized Ethernet, standardized Wi-Fi, standardized Bluetooth. The IEEE has about 400,000 global members. Every major tech company, every sort of large manufacturer, every organization has members in here that participate in this standardization. Why? Because when you have something like a Wi-Fi standard, that's what everybody adopts. They manufacture their products around it, and they know that the quality and control mechanisms have basically been applied. So we gave this world modeling language called HSML, Hyperspatial Modeling Language. We donated this to the IEEE. Why? Because this enables everyone like HTML today to build a new kind of new types of software agents that are spatially aware. What we've been doing is building our Genius platform on top of these standards. As these standards come online, and we expect their approval in the next 12 months or so, our platform will be the only platform that is standards-based, that enables AI interoperability, AI explainability, and AI governance, the ability to have AIs that follow our laws. So we saw this quite early, prepared for it, and now, of course, there's a market that cares about these kinds of things. So we're well positioned. The underlying science I mentioned, Professor Carl Friston. Professor Friston invented or discovered rather something called the free energy principle. You can think of this as something quite similar to Newton's laws of motion, but applied to intelligence. You can think of this as E equals MC squared, although if you're looking at the page, it looks much more complicated than that. So tip of the hat to Einstein for making it simple. The idea here, without you trying to parse through this, is that you have something that it can actively infer information in real time. So it's making inferences, it's guessing and learning. And then it learns through experience. That's the difference. Instead of just learning from examples, repetition, pattern matching, it's learning from experience. Test it, learn. This is like a little scientist in all of our minds and every living thing, trying to make sense of the world in real time, not with big data, but with a little bit of data. And so we've proven this. In August, we wrote a paper with several other scientists at the University of Tokyo. This was published in Nature magazine, arguably the most prestigious 150-year-old science magazine in the world. Intelligence decoded, right? So this is the result of this. Our results suggest that the free energy principle is the self-organizing principle of biological neural networks. Why? Because we put neurons from the brain in a petri dish, palpitated them with electrical signals, and then Carl Friston's free energy principle predicted the exact changes to the neurons, how they would update, how the paths would get stronger based on his mathematical model. This is what we've put into our software. So it predicted, as it says here from Professor Isomura, how learning occurs in neurons upon receiving particular sensory inputs. This can be used to create next generation artificial intelligences that learn as real neural networks do. This is how the brain learns. We've been able to decode that, and now code it into our software platform. And we're the only ones in the world who've figured this out right at the moment that the whole world has basically gone AI crazy. So instead of the sort of artificial path to intelligence, is sort of like the foundations that we're looking at today, we have a natural path, right? That leads these naturally intelligent agents that are generalizable, that are adaptive, that are multisensory, that can be governed, right? Can work together and can be interpretable. But more importantly, as we start to increasingly see the cost of these massive AI systems of our competitors, these are hyper efficient. And so I do believe we're going to have a better product that's going to be cheaper to use. And instead of these companies building AI, we're letting everyone basically generate their own AIs from their own data and run them in our system. And so what you get is smarter software, right? Now that can align with human understanding, the multidimensionality of both the logical and physical understanding of the world, right? Our objects, our rules, our activities that can learn, that can reason, and can adapt. This has been the sci-fi dream of software for 75 years, right? But we have finally achieved that, and we're starting to roll it out to customers this month. Our competition has been building what they call foundation models on this sort of artificial foundation, and they're competing to be this AI infrastructure. Some of these names you might have heard of. None of them were worth anything 12 months ago. OpenAI now at $29 billion valuation, $10+ billion infusion from Microsoft, Anthropic $5 billion plus. They just got a $4 billion sort of partnership with Amazon, Cohere and Inflection, and a handful of others. There are some big names like Google, and you could think of Microsoft and perhaps Meta or Facebook, but these are the real AI labs that are doing the hardcore work. The problem that these systems have is that they essentially all trained on the exact same data set. They don't really have much of a moat. And it's that public data, which is really makes up only 5% of the data online, because most data is behind a password, behind a login. And so they've trained on that data set, all the different sort of, text out there on the web, which we know is filled with misinformation and bias and other kinds of issues. Genius is focused on that 95% under the waterline. Your data, right? As an individual, as a business, as a government, right? And we give you secure and absolute control over your data. We're not using it to learn and mine other things or resell your data to some advertiser. We're interested in selling you a service that applies intelligence to your data, right? And this is where the big prize is. Finally, though, because they have this sort of scale is all you need approach, big data, bigger models, more compute, more chips, more energy, massive costs, it's also resulted in all these problems, right? Number one, accuracy. The larger these things get, the less they're less accurate in many ways. They're less explainable. They don't work with other systems. And now we've seen IP lawsuits coming from everyone from the New York Times to, your Stephen King, suing them because they crawled all that public data and they've extracted it, and now they're being sued. And of course, every government in the world now extremely concerned with the impact of these things, not just sort of bias and misinformation, which is a real concern, but even that these things will eventually become more intelligent than humans and will have no way to govern their abilities. This is all because all of those companies basically follow the approach of one man. This is the godfather of AI, Geoffrey Hinton. You may have seen him on 60 Minutes this last week. Geoffrey Hinton started at University College London, started the computer science lab there. He's one of the top researchers, considered the godfather of AI, basically moved to Google around 2015. And here's the lineage I want you to see, the artificial path. It starts in University College London. Professor Hinton begins the entire sort of path there. His students form a group called DeepMind. Elon Musk invests in DeepMind. This is around 2012. They start having some major breakthroughs. They don't really make any money. And Google comes along and buys them for $500 million. This now moves AI, which really started in London, the modern wave of AI, to Silicon Valley. And everything that's happening in the AI wave today is a result of Google grabbing those folks. Now you started to see these AIs beating chess champions and beating people at the game of Go. And Elon and a handful of others get very nervous. Google now looks like it might be the first one on the path, like the first one on the path to nuclear power with these sort of artificial superintelligences, and forms OpenAI, the company that has now changed the world with ChatGPT. This is back in 2015 as an alternative to Google's closed approach. But Microsoft comes along, invests some $1 billion, and then we saw the big breakthrough this last year where ChatGPT came out, 100 million users in 60 days. They made $22 million last year. They're on track for $1.3 billion now, right? And all of the other parties, Inflection, Cohere, and even Anthropic, and even Elon's new XAI company, are all ex-Google AI people running the AI divisions in the company, basically following the same scale approach, the artificial approach that leads to all the challenges, bias, misinformation, closed system, massive cost, massive compute architecture, and ironically, even OpenAI is closed. Well, guess what? In that same exact building at University College London, right next door to the computer science lab, was the neuroscience lab. Well, it's there today. Professor Carl Friston, our chief scientist, is there. His students form a competing group called Nested Minds instead of Deep Mind, based on how the brain actually processes information, not just how to get a computer to mimic it. We acquired those folks into Versus because we're building essentially an engine, not just to search text on the web, but something to basically apply intelligence to the world. We donated that to our own nonprofit, Spatial Web Foundation, which went to the IEEE. This is now an open infrastructure for the world to be able to build intelligent software systems that we believe are smarter and safer and cheaper. Finally, we're not the only ones saying this. This sort of generative AI, the OpenAI and the rest, this is the Gartner hype cycle, shows generative AI just now hitting the peak of inflated expectations, if you see this red arrow up here. Down here on the left, you'll see first principles AI has just come on board at the innovation trigger. This is the best possible place to invest in something because it means that the entire cycle here where you get to the plateau of productivity, where you have mass adoption, is down the road, but the market hasn't seen that benefit yet. First principles AI is based on natural computing. It's based on physics. It's based on understanding the hard science of how the brain learns, as we've demonstrated to you a couple of times here. We believe we're the best positioned company in the world right now to basically take the leadership position over the next 18 to 24 months because of our superior approach, grounded in science, not just more flapping wings, but something that understands the aerodynamics, in this case, the neurodynamics of the mind. So not only do you get smarter, but you get safer AI that can use these other AI tools, right? So it can use OpenAI, it can use image systems, it can use robotic systems. You want our AI to be the quarterback on the field calling the plays because it learns and adapts in real time. The others just learn one sort of thing and they can be applied sometimes very well to those things. But in any critical system, we believe we're better positioned. By the way, because we based it on standards, our intelligent software, these geniuses can actually share and collaborate and work together. So they can share information over networks, and they can actually work in real time, whether those are sort of robotic swarms inside the supply chain or the nanobots that might one day sort of help heal your body. So there's two paths to intelligence here. There's the artificial path, which is the thesis of scale the machine, big data, bigger models, bigger costs, a static fixed AI system, or the natural path, where it's about growing an ecosystem of lots of small data, but on the larger 95% of the data with these smaller models that are very adaptive and can learn and work together. We've had amazing traction in the last 5 years. We've been working to hit the market right at this time. We've been positioning ourselves to basically be ready with a product that was tested, was applicable when a market arrived. And so we partner with some of the world's leading scientists, universities across the world. We put out 30 different scientific papers. The one in Nature magazine is just one of our latest. We partner with the top standards bodies, both the IEEE and the European Commission, where we did a 3-year test with autonomous powered drones running on the standards that prevented those drones from going into certain areas, flying above certain crowds, making sure they stayed in certain flight corridors. So we've actually tested these standards and their ability to have governance. And we partner with some of the top firms from Deloitte and Gartner that are referencing our material to Dentons, the largest law firm in the world, and Blue Yonder, the top supply chain provider. Finally, I'm just going to wrap up here because I think we're pushing up against the end of the time here. AI has gotten the attention of all the governments. We're now calling for international technical standards for AI so that we can govern AIs. We put together a report with Dentons. It's now being read by members in the United States Senate and Congress and the AI caucus. That's an 80-page paper. It's on our website. Denton's the largest law firm in the world that calls for the standards-based approach, which we've taken for our system, to be applied as the only basis for basically governing AIs themselves. Quick snapshot of the roadmap. So we're launching our private beta now. This is going to be for 6 months. We're selecting 10 customers from 10 different industries, and we'll be testing that, getting testimonials and case studies. And then we'll be rolling out to what's called a public beta, which allow thousands, tens of thousands, millions of developers to start developing their own applications the same way they develop iPhone apps or Android apps today, but they're going to be developing these smarter applications for everything. We think the IEEE standardization happens just before that. So somewhere in 2024, we might be the only standards-based intelligent software platform in the world. We're basing this on a consumption model. So essentially, the amount of storage and compute that you use on our system. This is very similar to OpenAI and the rest, or you can think of Amazon. Any SaaS model, except it's not based on seat licenses or specifically on enterprise. We think the consumption model is going to be ideal for now. A quick snapshot of my board of directors. Former Deloitte Vice Chairman Jay Samit is our current chair. That's my co-founder, Dan Mapes. Quick snapshot of the cap table. You got 63 of 146 million shares to the founding team. We've raised about $50 million US. Some of these numbers down here on the left are in Canadian because we took the company public in Canada. It trades on the CBOE in Canada, which was the NDO. It was purchased by Chicago Board of Exchange, and it trades in the US under the OTCQB VRSSF. Finally, I just want to point out something that is not necessarily obvious. Versus is the kind of company that you'd expect to see, in a Silicon Valley venture fund that's looking to get 1,000x, an early stage in the early wave of technology. And all of our competitors, their multi-billion-dollar valuations, are exactly that. They're all funded by the exact same sort of 10 VCs and or Google Ventures, NVIDIA Ventures, Salesforce Ventures, right? We're not funded by those folks, right? We're funded by the public. We took this public so that you could be our partners in this. Now, what's the advantage? This gives you the ability to have something like VC-like returns, right? With liquidity, without the VC-like risk. As I mentioned before, we believe that this natural foundation for intelligent software is actually better positioned than the rest of them. And we are the only pure play foundational player in the entire public markets. All of our competition is in the private markets, and the public will get their first bite at one or two of them in 6 or 7 years, when those guys have already gotten their 1,000x return. So we think that we're ideally positioned to basically take the lead over the next year and a half. We also think that we're the best opportunity for the public to be able to join in this new intelligence age. Thank you. Oh, you're on mute there, Joe.
Sorry about that. I was saying thank you for a very comprehensive overview of, number one, your business, but also the AI topic, where there's still a lot of confusion out there in the U.S. And we think that this is a very, very interesting idea. And for all of our investors in the audience, Gabe will be available for one-on-one meetings today. If you have not already signed up, please visit the Lytham Partners website at lythampartners.com/virtual and click the one-on-one meetings request button. We thank you for joining us on today's presentation, and we hope the conference will reveal some interesting new investment opportunities for all of you. Have a great day. Again, Gabe, thanks very much.
Thank you, Joe.